All right, guys, back again. Welcome back to the Florida Buzz YouTube channel. So luckily, I soaked these overnight. These are all looking awesome. I got them set down to somewhat close to zero lash. It turns out some oil bled into my lifters, so I'm not going to be able to use the foolproof method where you keep the lifters spongy and then you just tighten these down to zero lash, do a quarter of a turn, and then lock them down. I'm probably gonna have to do it the old school fashion comp cam's recommended way, which is where you wait for the exhaust valve to open all the way, I believe, and then you adjust the intake. And then for the exhaust valve on the same cylinder, you wait for the intake to go all the way down and come halfway back up. Now I know that's a hell of a pain compared to the other way, but I just got ahead of myself, man. I jumped the gun and I threw my lifters in because I wanted to go ahead and get these heads on because I've been waiting, you know, over a year between 3 different machine shops to get my block right. But, you know, that's just welcome to Florida for you. So aside from that, I really wanted to talk about something, man. I'm super ecstatic right now. I was actually really worried there for a second. I almost thought these valve covers that I cut, these are the stock valve covers, I cut the baffles out of them and then I had them powder coated blue to match the intake. And I mean, they just look absolutely amazing. Now, remember again, I think I told you guys this in another video, doesn't really matter too much, but I actually painted this to begin with, the timing cover and the oil pan. And then I was actually debating switching to green because I bought a new toolbox that was green. My motorcycle's green and black, so I was gonna do the whole truck in a matte black, and then I was gonna do lime green on the motor. But the freaking powder coat guys around me, man, they're shysters, man. I hate to say it, but you know, I think I paid like 80 bucks to 100 bucks to have these two valve covers done, and they charged me like 150 to do the intake. And I asked them if I brought it all back to them at one time, how much they would want to do it all over again. And they wanted to charge me full whack. And it's like, dude, I already paid you full price to do them in blue. You're literally just going to coat over them. You know what I mean? You're making money either way. You know what I mean? I'm bringing you the same prepped products. You know what I mean? And you're just painting them. It's that simple. And I was going to throw in the timing cover and the oil pan. So I wouldn't mind painting a little bit more, but they wanted to charge me full whack over again on the valve covers and the intake. Then they wanted to charge me full whack on the oil pan and the timing cover. They wanted like $400 to do all that, man. That's crazy. So anyways, long story short, I found this other guy in Cocoa who's a really good guy. He does amazing work, and he's half the price of these guys. His turnaround time isn't nowhere near as good, but his prices are super affordable. But anyways, long story short, we're here in April. I guess back in January of last year, they put in new regulations on powder coat stripper. So he told me he's been having a lot of trouble stripping powder coat off, even with a sandblaster, I guess. I don't even know if they have a sandblaster. It's just his words. But anyways, he told me I'd be better off stripping them myself, which I'm not going to do. So you know what? It's a motor. It's going to be hidden, 90% of its life, unless, I go to a car show and pop the hood. So I'm just going to leave everything blue. But anyways, getting back on track, I almost thought these valve covers weren't going to work, man. But after I put the gaskets in, I'm 99.9% sure they're good. And they look amazing, man. So like I said, I got another 5 roller rockers soaking in oil because I could only fit so many in my bucket at a time that I had. And plus, this was my assembly oil. I only bought 1 quart of synthetic blend assembly oil. I'm not going out and buying another quart of oil. I think I touched base on this in another video, but that Castrol over there, that 5 quart thing was 25 bucks, which isn't bad, theoretically for full synthetic 5W30 Castrol Edge, which is their upper grade. But when you're not buying it in 5 quarts and you're buying a single quart, they wanted like $8 to $9, depending on where you went, for a 5 quart jug. 1 quart, they wanted, like I said, $7, $8, man. That's crazy. So I found this at Walmart. It's Valvoline synthetic blend. Like I said, it's not, this entire quart isn't going into the motor. I'm going to use what I use of it. It's going to go into the container, and then I'll probably use it, in another car at a later time. But I only paid like in between $280 and $330 for this 1 quart, which is super decent for, synthetic blend. Like I said, it's just assembly oil. It's going to, half of it's ran out on my cardboard, and this is the second piece of cardboard I've gone through. So like I said, when it comes to assembly oil, as long as it's synthetic blend, you don't need full synthetic. If you got the money, you know what I mean, go for it. But me, I'm not paying $8, to have good assembly oil. Not, mind you, 90% of everything in this block right now, I put assembly lube on anyways, so I really didn't even need to oil it. But the rockers, they have to soak, and plus, I'm going to change the oil on this motor in, you know, the first 500 to 600 miles. So it doesn't really matter what oil you use. You could even use, you know, standard dyno oil. You know what I mean? You could use straight out of the ground 5W30. You could use, you know, 5W20. It's just to lube things. It's just to give it a synthetic property, you know, some lubrication, like my roller rockers. Which, by the way, these are the comp cams. I believe I touched base on this on another video, but this is a pure video about the valve covers and the rocker arms. So I'm going to go a little more into depth on these. I threw the box over here, but I wanted to touch base on this because I found the name of them. They are, let this clear up for a second. Come on. They are the Pro Mag steel ultra rocker arms, 1:6 ratio. And like I said, guys, they are phenomenal. And kudos to the edelbrock heads. Luckily, because, you know, I spent the extra buck on those, I saved it on the rocker arms. You know, so you got to think about it that way, guys. You know, even though, so if you look at performance heads for Magnums, I should have added this in the other video, but I didn't. But think about it this way. If you buy cast iron, heavy duty casting heads, which are the heck's the name of the brand? God dang, dude, I don't know what it is, man. I need to start writing scripts because I'll sit here and talk to my wife about this stuff perfectly, flawlessly through the whole freaking time. And then I get on video and I start talking to you guys and I just start, you know, glitching up and forgetting stuff. It's hilarious. But anyways, they're the EQ heads. There you go. So the EQ heavy casting heads, those heads alone are like $1,200. So look at it this way. So you're going to spend $1,200 on EQ heads. You're going to be limited on how much compression you can run. Now, don't get me wrong. EQ heads are badass, and you can port and polish them the whole 9 yards. But you're looking at $1,200. Let's say 1,000 to 12. Okay, on the EQ heads. Now, mind you, they're restricted to the stock rocker arms. So you're going to pay for a good set of Hartman Sharp Chrysler rocker arms, 1:6 ratio. You're going to pay $400 and change for them. You might get lucky and catch them on a sale, but full retail through Summit, I looked them up several times. They're $430, I believe, maybe even $460 for their adjustable series. So you're looking at $1,200 for the heads. Let's just do worst case scenario. $1,200 for the heads, $450 for the rocker arms, and then you know, add shipping and all that. I mean, you're basically looking at the same price. I mean, I know you really can't factor shipping into, you know, the price of the object, but I mean, really think about it. These heads, like I said, I got them on a super Black Friday sale and I used a good promo that I've been hiding up my sleeve for a while. I got these heads for $1,200, I believe. So relatively speaking, I paid the same price for these heads that you would for the EQs on a normal day. No, I'm not saying you can't get a deal on EQ heads, because you definitely can. But do the $1,200 for the EQ heads, and then $430 to $480, or let's say $450 for good rocker arms. You're at $2,000, bro. So like I said, it's a lose-lose with the cast iron heads. It really is. I mean, can you convert the cast iron heads and run a different rocker arm? Of course you can. But wouldn't you rather be happier buying everything at a higher quality for a cheaper price and then not having to worry about all that? Like, I watched this other guy that converted his rocker arms over to these guys or something similar to these. And his video is like 20 minutes long, man. I did no fabrication work to these heads whatsoever. And like I said, the only downside to these heads, and I wouldn't even really call it a downside, is the hardened push rods. So think about it this way. You buy EQ heads, you buy roller rockers, you're at, whatchamacallit, you're at, you got $1,200, and they're really $13. They're $12.99. So you got $1,300 plus $450. So that's what, almost $1,800? Then add the roller rockers that are specific for, I'm sorry, not the roller rockers. Then add the push rods, because you gotta buy new push rods when you convert all that. So these hardened push rods I got through edelbrock specifically for these heads. If I remember correctly, man, these push rods were like $40. They weren't bad. I mean, normal push rods, I believe it or not, I think are more than that. I mean, mind you, I'm just, guessing off the top of my head. But like I said, when you add everything up, man, I mean, it's a pretty good bang for your buck. Right now, as it sits, my motor is 10-to-1 compression, going in a truck. There's no way you'd be able to pull that off. in a 4,400 pound vehicle that you're looking to tow with. You cannot pull off 10-to-1 compression with iron heads. I tried it. I worked the numbers every way I could. I really went into full scientific detail about this. I talked to several specialists. Every one of them shot me down. So if you want to make good power, have good compression, not hinder your build, these are really your only option, man. And like I said, if you wait it out, guys, I promise you, you can get a phenomenal deal on these. Like I said, I paid, I think, $600 to $650 a head. Let's say $1,700 a head is what I paid. That's $1,400. These were $200. I'm at $1,600. Add the $40 push rods. And mind you, they came with free, they're over here now. They came with free head gaskets, you know? So if I would have had a little bit taller of a deck height, I could have ran that head gasket and I would have been good to go. But instead I decided to go with the tried and true Felpro 1008, and they're phenomenal. But anyways, guys, I'm kind of getting off track. I really just wanted to give you guys a good look at these valve covers while I got some time to kill, waiting on the rest of these rocker arms to finish soaking. Because remember, you have to soak these for, I would say, at minimum 18 hours. I soaked this first set, this whole set. And mind you, I was actually able to fit, because you've got 16 in total, I think I was able to fit 12 in on the first run. So all of these are on, and they're all nice and lubed. And then on this side, I think there's 2 or 3. Well, think about it, 16 minus 5, there's 11. So there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. So yeah, so there's 3 on this side, and I got 5 left running. So figure either get a bigger bucket and, you know, bite the bullet and buy enough oil to fill a bucket tall enough, you know, to soak these all in one shot. But me personally, I'm in no rush, so I didn't mind, you know, doing 2 rounds. I still got to put my spark plugs in, but I'm not going to put my spark plugs in until I finish with the harmonic balancer. That's another thing I went ahead and did. I went ahead and tapped this on. I put some nice APR or ARP moly lube on this, because normally you're not supposed to beat these on. But my technique that I like to do is, if you leave the oil pan off, you can put a screwdriver in between the throws right here and hold it from beating back on the bearings. And then what you do is you just put some APR moly lube on this bolt. You beat this on far enough to where you get a good amount of catch with this. And don't forget to lube the inside of the balancer that you're beating on. It just helps a little bit. And I wouldn't really recommend assembly lube because it's very tacky. I mean, it was pretty hard to honestly turn this motor over at first because of how much assembly lube was on there and not enough oil, because oil has a way thinner synthetic property, or even conventional property, than assembly lube does. So anyways, I put assembly lube on the seal. I beat this in about 1/4 of an inch. I tightened this down the best I could. I don't actually have this size on hand. We're still dealing with the coronavirus, obviously, and I'm waiting for my shop to open back up. I'm actually locked out of my shop right now, and I can't get to my whatchamacallits. I can't get to my sockets. I should have brought my axle sockets home. I brought home as many tools as I could. I mean, I've got about $60,000 worth of tools at my shop. Not trying to brag or anything, but I brought home all of what I thought I would need. And to be honest with you, I kind of brought home overkill. There's more tools that are actually in my car that I was going to take back today. Luckily, or yesterday, luckily my shop was closed, because this hammer I was going to take back, and this little guy, this is one of my favorite dead blow hammers. It's a clutch dead blow. This thing for beating on rocker assemblies on 4-cylinder Hondas and the whole 9 yards. Dude, this thing is a lifesaver. It doesn't mar anything up, and it has just enough whack to get done what you needed. Honestly, I use this hammer more than I use this one, but in this case, I needed the extra weight on the swing. So this one actually got the job done. So now this can actually go back. But anyways, yeah, I believe this is a 24 millimeter. I didn't bring home any of my heavy duty sockets. I forgot. That's the one socket I would have needed. You know, as any mechanic would know, it's always that one socket you forget. So anyways, aside from that, guys, we're making good progress. The timing cover's on. That's another thing I completely forgot about. I put the timing cover on last night. My wife was tired. I couldn't have her help me video. I really wanted to have you guys there while I put this timing cover on. But just to give you a rundown, I see a lot of guys milk these up with a lot of RTV. You really don't want to do that. My technique on these is that I want you to look at your block really well. If it's straight and true and there's no divots or any kind of corrosion that you can't clean up, If it's a perfect true surface, I would recommend, guys, you use as little RTV as possible. So anyways, what I had the problem is around the two the two coolant jacket holes where the water pump leads in, there was a lot of dimpling and corrosion around the coolant ports. So what I did was I used a thin layer, a very thin layer, just on that side, just on the back side of the gasket, because on the front side of the gasket, this is a brand new timing cover and water pump housing. So I left that bare. I put the nice clean gasket on there. Like I said, I put a nice thin coat. You notice how there's a little bit of excess squeeze, but not overkill. You see that very little bit? And that's the problem, guys. If you go overkill with RTV, it's gonna be squeezing out of every nook and cranny. And honestly, I mean, the more the merrier is not always the case, especially on timing covers. So anyways, I put it on. I put all these bolts in. I started them by hand. The foot-pound rating for this timing cover, just so you guys know, is 30 foot-pounds. What I ended up doing was I put them in, I torqued them to about 20, and it just seemed like with my torque wrench, I couldn't get a nice bite. So I ended up just taking my little Milwaukee M18 3/8 impact, and I just hit them until they stopped. And now, mind you, that doesn't mean I was hammering on them. You know what I mean? I wasn't really hammering on them, but I just hit them hard enough to where I knew they were torqued, and I know that gun very well. That gun at max puts out about, I would say, 35 to 48 foot-pounds. So I would say I torqued all these to about 32 foot-pounds, maybe a little more. But they're all evenly torqued. You know, I use the Ooga Dooga rating scale, which, like I said, I'm really good with because I know that gun very well. But I would not advise you to just throw an impact at this thing and start slamming it together. The first thing you want to do is start them all by hand, draw everything in nice and smooth, make sure there's no kinks in your gasket, because all along this top edge, there's a real big problem with the gasket kind of bowing out and kinking. So the last thing you want to do is just throw this thing on there and start running everything down. You want to move at a nice slow pace, draw it in smooth. And I promise you, as long as your timing cover is in good shape, the only place I would apply RTV to is the back side of the gasket. And like I said, you'll get a nice little squeeze, and that's all you really need, guys, trust me. If you have a timing cover leak, call me, I'll come help you fix it. But anyways, yeah, so like I said, man, not trying to get too off scale, but like I said, we already did the edelbrock head and video review. If you'll notice, I taped everything up. That's your best bet when you're still working on the motor. You don't want any debris really getting into these heads. Before this, they were all inside of a box. All the rocker arms are on there. They're set to 0 lash to the best of my ability. Like I said, they're not quite in spec yet, but the main thing I wanted to do was just get this first set of 11 on. I wanted to get them down to 0 lash, which you can see there's very little movement on these push rods. And then I wanted to test fit my valve covers, because honestly, guys, I probably should have waited, but after already putting the money into the valve covers, I was fixing to be very upset if these valve covers weren't going to clear these rocker arms. And I know a lot of you guys are going to sit there and say, man, you're dumb. Why would you put $100 into, you know, prepping and painting valve covers? Because honestly, with the work I put into them, cutting out the baffles, if these weren't to fit, I was really going to be upset, because like I said, I got a lot of work into these. Because if you look, see how I ground out all the rivets? So what I did was I cut all the baffles out, and then I ground out all the rivets. Now I'm probably going to tack weld a little piece of cover plate next to the PCV valve, and maybe one over the breather. Now I'm not talking about a complete sealed cover, but maybe just something to keep the oil from going directly into the PCV valve, because you're going to end up with a lot of blow by. Me personally, I'm probably going to run a catch can down the road, but yeah, aside from that, everything's really coming along. Sorry to chew your guys' ear off. Just so you guys know, the next video's coming up. I'll probably be doing the ignition system review. I'll be going over my wiring harness and my intake, because other than that, guys, I mean, other than the oil pump, other than the oil pan and the oil pan gasket, there's really not much left. You know, the main motor bracket, which I'm probably going to wait to put on because it's just extra weight. You know, that's something that can go on the day the motor's going in. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm gonna finish torquing down that torque converter. I'm gonna finish that harmonic balancer, you know, torquing it in, and then I'm gonna put this pulley on, and then this flex plate won't go on until the day the motor's ready. The oil pump will be going on soon. I just wanted to get this done first, because until I get this torque converter on, I keep saying torque converter, until I get this harmonic balancer on and torqued, I really can't turn the motor over without taking a socket and a screwdriver and getting inside these throws and moving it, because this thing's pushing some serious compression, guys. I mean, I know to you diehard, you know, muscle fans, you know, 10-to-1 compression ain't shit, but you know, to someone that's never worked on a motor with this high compression. It's up there. I think the highest compression motor I ever worked on that I helped assist with the build was 10.0 even, and it was pretty tough turning it over. Now remember, again, this is also a stroker motor, so there's a lot more weight in those throws you got to fight against. And with the assembly loop in there, it's a bitch, man. But anyways, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. That's about it. We're gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna clean up a little bit, get everything back to the way it was, because like I said, guys, we're almost done with this project. All right, guys, take it easy.